everybody. Welcome back to the Routine Podcast.
Gymnastics Conversations.
I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Chelsea's mom, Diana.
And we're back for episode 60.
Episode 60, wow. Do you think we'll make it to 100 one day?
I don't know.
We do about 30 a year, I guess. Are we?
Not good at math, Mom.
This is our second year, right?
This is our second year.
Okay, so that means we actually do about 40 a year. So to make it to 80, we'd need to do another year and a half.
We could do that.
I think we could.
No pressure or anything, but...
Our listeners want us to do it.
Do they?
No. You know, it's funny because it used to be about our listeners. Now it's just kind of about us and are we having a good time?
I mean, it is still about the listeners, really. But it's also like, well, what do we want to do? Where do we see this going? What are our goals?
Right? We didn't start out that way.
I think it was a little bit of both, though. I think it was, we knew what we wanted to accomplish, but at the same time, in order for people to listen, we needed to know what they wanted to hear.
Yeah, that's true, because I think that's when we did a survey. But I feel that because we have had such a good time, and so whether that's going to the meets, recording, talking about what happened on TV, that to me is even more fun than I think.
Yeah.
You know, although...
And things that we couldn't have even planned for.
Exactly. But what makes it fun is when the listeners are commenting on all those things.
Yeah.
Right? So we've almost just extended our family out.
Yeah.
That's what I think has made it fun. So yes, we can do another 40 and make it to 100 with no problem.
We're in it for the long haul.
Yes. Now after 100, all bets are off.
What's new? Any updates?
Update
the people, Mom.
Well, so today has been our day of interviews. Mm-hmm. Chelsea has made it here to Maryland. We are in the basement.
We're in our studio.
Puppy 1 and Puppy 2 are laying right next to us.
Yeah.
So I'm a happy camper. I did not have to travel this time.
And we're just knocking out interviews.
Yeah. We try to pick a day where we can do as many interviews as possible. And so today we've got 3 scheduled. Mm-hmm. We've done 1 so far, which was a fantastic interview. Mm-hmm. Can we say who it was with? I think we can.
Why not?
Right?
Yeah.
We interviewed Randy Lane, the former coach of UCLA, who's got a lot of future things planned that he shared with us.
Including the Collegiate Gymnastics Growth Initiative.
Right. So there's going to be an episode about that. We also are going to be interviewing...
we can't spoil the beans like right off the bat. We got to get a little teaser.
All right. Well, we've got 2 more interviews scheduled today. Mm-hmm. Both should be great, but it's with a gymnast. And so...
Who recently announced...
Oh, that's going to just tell everybody who it is if you keep going down that road.
Some people don't know.
Okay, go for it.
Who recently announced that she was going to try for the 2020 Olympics. And that's it. Period. That's all we got for you.
Guess who that is?
Take what you want with that information, but very exciting.
Very exciting. Yeah. So this is our day of fun interviews.
We got some comments about our last episode with Coach McCharles. You want to give a little rundown of what our last episode was about, Mom?
Sure. So we interviewed Coach Rick McCharles. He is a Canadian gymnastics coach who actually coaches around the world, literally.
Yeah.
But he actually talked to us this time about Canadian gymnasts. And one of the things I think we don't think about when we watch these, beautiful Canadian gymnasts is kind of what they go through and what they've been through to be able to compete in the States. Mm-hmm. And I think through that interview, he really helped us look at it in a way in which we didn't. But he also gave us a long list of Canadian gymnasts. Again, things that we just hadn't thought about. So it was a fun interview.
We got a couple of tweets about the interview. The first one from Region 5 Insider. And they said, enjoyed the episode. Definitely many outstanding Canadians have come through the NCAA system. Got to give a shout out to University of Michigan Wolverine Canadian buddy Lisa Sims back in the 90s. And thanks Coach McCharles for the Region 5 mentioned during the episode.
And our second tweet is from Sam as a Dancer. And Sam said, loved hearing about Canadian gymnasts and NCAA on the podcast. And I got called out for not sending a voicemail. Next controversial topic, I'm calling in. So that's going to be this episode.
Yeah. Today's episode could be considered controversial.
Oh, there's no doubt. So those are a couple tweets that we received that we wanted to share with you.
Moving on to current events in NCAA Gym, our new segment.
As of 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Let's not make it more than it is.
Former LSU gymnast, former standout LSU gymnast.
Former amazing.
Mom's favorite gymnast. Yeah. Really the gymnast that made Mom obsessed with LSU.
And I kid you not, I guess this was about 3 weeks ago. This is when we were talking about the LSU questioning if they could extend the number of scholarships from 12 to 14. For whatever reason, I don't know whatever reason, but I was riding the train headed to work, and I decided to go on YouTube and find Ashley's floor routine.
Oh, really?
I did.
That was what year? I think
no, not the last year, not her senior year, but the junior year.
Yeah, I think that was 2016 when she did like the Shishanova.
Yeah, and when she flew through the air, literally.
Yeah, that was a really great floor routine.
Yeah, and I watched it again, right? And she, did her little step out thing that she would do to get on the floor. And then that music goes with the dance, and she'd do the double layout on floor.
Yeah.
I think people should watch it again.
Okay, I'm going to put it on the website, Ashley Nat 2016 floor routine.
Best floor routine. When the music soars, she soars, and the crowd yells. It just took me back again. And again, I think that's when you first talked to me about watching LSU. That was my introduction, watching Ashley compete floor. So anyhow, she's now at Penn State, huh?
Yeah. I never actually got there. You kind of cut me off, but it's okay. So she is officially now the assistant coach at Penn State.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, you got real excited about talking about Ashley and your love for her. But congratulations to her. That's actually like a huge move because she previously was the graduate assistant at LSU.
But she did that for 2 years.
Yes. And now she's in the big leagues.
Right. Yeah, so I think it's just fun to watch how we're seeing some of the other coaches moving forward, like Coach Val and other coaches, and watching some of the gymnasts becoming coaches. I think that's going to be fun to watch this transition. Mm-hmm. So speaking of coaches, we're going to talk a little bit about Oklahoma coach KJ Kindler.
Yeah, so on June 27th, the Norman Transcript released an article titled OU Regents Approve Big Raise for Women's Gymnastics Coach KJ Kindler.
Yay, KJ.
So well deserved.
Oh my gosh.
And how much are we talking? How much moolah?
It says that she will have a total of $3.17 million if she remains for the next 6 years of her contract, and is believed to be the nation's highest paid women's gymnastics coach.
Rightfully so.
Right? If it's going to be any school,
yeah,
it's Oklahoma. And here's just some stats that I just thought really is a testament to why it's so deserved. She just recently completed her 13th season, and Oklahoma has won 11 conference titles in her 13 years.
Crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Of all the coaches in women's gymnastics who deserves to be the highest paid coach, it's KJ.
She's a mastermind.
Hey, but here's the bad news about this.
Uh-oh.
So Chelsea sent me this article.
And Mom being the researcher that she is.
Well, and also being the woman that I am.
Yeah.
Based on the salary amount, I compared it to what men coaches are receiving.
What type of coaches, though?
I don't care. Because it doesn't matter the sport. That's what's so sad about it. If it's a female sport and a male sport, that's the same. So basketball, gymnastics, soccer, men are making a tremendous amount more.
It's very discouraging.
It is. And can I just give a couple of stats? This is an article that I read back in April of last year, and it's salary disparities between male and female head coaches, an investigation of the NCAA Power 5 conferences.
I'll link it on our website.
That'd be good. Okay, so this was in North Carolina. So in 2016, there were 39 male basketball or football coaches that were the highest paid employees in their respective state. At the University of North Carolina, Roy Williams' 2016 contract earned him a base salary of just over $2 million. At the same university, women's head coach Sylvia Hatchell earned a base salary of $650,000. So $650,000 versus $2 million. And this is the part that kind of drove me nuts. Both coaches have comparable career wins, and Hatchell has been head of the North Carolina team for nearly twice as long. So she's been there longer, have the same win record, but she makes that much less.
This is very fitting given that women's national soccer team is now in the World Cup at the time we're recording this. Hopefully they make it to the finals.
Yay, women. Sorry.
But they're obviously going through their own struggles and trying to be equally paid as the men's team, as they should be. They're winning.
They're more popular.
Yeah, they are.
And this is not the first time they've been more popular. Again, I highly encourage you to read the article. They basically take a look at the median salary between men's and women's programs. And in a nutshell, for men's programs, the median salary is $329,000 compared to women. It's $171,000. And if you continued looking at that statistic, we wouldn't make the same as men until the year 2059. Craziness.
Wage gap is real, people.
It's real. But again, congratulations to Coach Kindler.
Yes.
So deserved.
Yeah.
Hopefully she'll continue to push on and help women across the country, women coaches around the country, earn what they deserve.
I was just about to say that. Get your money. Get that bag. We all deserve it, people.
Yeah.
Know your worth.
Absolutely.
So let's talk more controversial news, Mom.
Yeah, we didn't mean for that to be that, but you sent me that article. But sure, yeah. So our interview today, we're talking with Dr. Dave Tilley. He is a sports medicine doctor who's written a book that was called Changing Gymnastics Culture. He is the author of the website shiftmovementscience.com. And if you remember our episode from last year, Dave tells it like it is, not how we want it to be.
Very true. Honestly, if anything's going to change, we need to hear the hard truth.
Yeah, I agree with that. His voice is a voice that needs to be heard.
And what really inspired us to have Dave back on the show is an article that the NCAA released back around this time last year titled "Female Gymnasts Use Narcotic Pain Meds at a Higher Rate Than Any Other College Athletes."
You have to say that again because I think people need to hear what you just said.
Female gymnasts use narcotic pain meds at a higher rate than any other college athletes.
Crazy. And when you read that article, did that surprise you?
No.
That's what's really insane, right?
Yeah. And I mentioned this in the interview. When you were a gymnast, even in club, not just college, but in club, it was very common just to be popping pills like it was gummy bears.
That's sad, Chelsea.
I know. And we didn't think anything of it.
Didn't know.
In order to get through practice, that's what you had to do.
So on today's episode, we actually interviewed Dr. Tilley about this article. He, of course, knew very much about it and then some. And
then it was funny enough. The day of our interview, the NCAA released another article stating that 36% of NCAA women sustained at least one major sports-related injury before entering college. The highest sport, by 77%, was gymnastics. And again, is that surprising? When we set up the interview with Dave, we didn't know, obviously, this article was going to come out. We weren't kind of feeling good about these articles. Yeah. And so when you listen to the interview, again, it's just kind of the hard truth that Dave is making sure that we all face and try to fix. So we are joined with Dr. Dave Tilley. Dave has the wonderful website called shiftmovementscience.com. And many of you remember we talked to Dave last summer, and we knew that we had to have him back on this summer. Hi, Dave.
How are you guys? I'm super flattered to be here again. Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you. And we, before we started recording, We were having a pretty sobering conversation,
No,
which you tend to do, by the way.
it's not that good. I know. I'm a really happy guy, I promise. I'm very uplifting and I'm very fun and I love coaching fun and treating fun. But the reality of the current problem that a lot of us in gymnastics are facing, unfortunately, brings up some somber mindsets,
Sure. Well, let's just jump right into it. And we talk about the current climate. Talk about what you're referring to.
Yeah, so I guess there's just a combination of concerning research statistics that are coming out on the rates of overuse injuries and burnout. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence coming out from a lot of ex-college elite and or JO gymnasts who, tried to go for certain goals, not always about high level, but just wanted to do well in the sport. And their reports of not going good track with injuries, but also not having a really good happy kind of career ending or the way they wanted to go out is, I guess, matching what we feared. So I guess the fear has always been for the last 20 years, gymnastics is a hard sport and it has a high overuse injury rate, but, it's just the way gymnastics is. And, it's not as bad as we think. And then I guess that now we're just seeing a couple papers, especially from the NCAA, that have been published. One saying that the rate of gymnasts using narcotics in NCAA is higher than any other sport or comparable high to most sports. And then there was another one that came out. Essentially, it said that 77% of collegiate gymnasts, so 8 out of every 10 in the study, this is completely NCAA wide, so across all 3 divisions, that all of them had reported a, quote, serious sport-related injury before they got to college. So this means, what I'm referring to or assuming from that study is probably they've had big fractures, they've had surgeries like OCDs in the elbows, they've had back fractures, things like that. So some of those studies show that the rate of narcotic use is extremely high. The rate of injury before college is very high. And then the injury data on things in the research that have come out, there's a paper by Dr. Sweeney from Colorado's group that talked about return to play stuff. And there's a doctor locally, or a physician's assistant, Ellie Hart, who is a good friend of mine, who also put out a paper on overuse injuries and total injuries. And it shows that, somewhere between 70 to 80% of all the injuries are overuse. They're not that freak accident, which we know is a part of all sports, not just gymnastics. So it speaks to the problem that kids are having injuries that slowly come on and we're overtraining them, or we're not preparing them enough with strength and conditioning, or the real unfortunate reality is that we have far too many people who are a little bit over their head with ego or maybe a lack of knowledge. And before I get into pointing any fingers, I will say that I'm someone who's made every single mistake. I've been a coach who had a big ego and was pushing my kids because I was tying my self-worth to their gymnastics and not what they wanted. I've been a medical provider who wasn't educated and as a result ended up having people get hurt. And I've been a gymnast who was too thick-skulled to listen to the people around me and pushed myself too far. So I've had many of the things that I think are the current reality in this problem. So I'm very open to critiquing myself. But when you look at the data on the amount of injuries, you look at the high amounts of burnout that people are reporting, the attrition rates are insane. And you also pair that with the anecdotes of gymnasts who are saying, my coach was super hard on me. My parents pushed me really hard. I was super stressed out as a young kid and I was just pushed really hard emotionally. There's a difference between using the values of sport to teach hard work and grit and emotionally and or mentally pushing a young kid too far, pairing that with overuse injury. And so I've just seen a huge increase in the last 2 years of my practice in the amount of kids who are banged up emotionally, physically, and mentally, that I think that it just calls for like serious thought about, okay, we need to really turn this system on its head and maybe start over from scratch about some of the things and the concepts we use. I
can say as well that I'm one of those parents, took the sport way too seriously. And it was her sport, not my sport. Looking back on it, there were so many things I would do differently if I had the knowledge and the information, and just kind of looked myself in the mirror in a different way. And you know what it took me is when she woke up out of the hospital bed after surgery and looking at this little bitty body that had this slice. It was very, very hard.
My patient's confidentiality is the most important thing to me. So I'm never sharing any information that's not allowed to be released, right? And it's privacy. I feel that way with my gymnasts. None of my gymnasts are typically on social media unless they want to be. Like, it's very private. But I wish that coaches and parents and other medical providers could see the devastating impact that these injuries and the emotional pressure of gymnastics has on these kids. I kid you not that I probably have at least once or twice per week an athlete who is on the verge of tears in my office because they have to wear a back brace for 23 hours per day, or they have an OCD lesion in their elbow and they have to have elbow surgery and then have to have another one on their other surgery, or they tore their ACL and their entire competitive year is gone and they're scared about a scholarship and all they did for their whole life was train in gymnastics, whether it was homeschooled or whether it was just live, sleep, breathe, eat gymnastics. I wish that people could just get a small peek into the other side of the fence of how bad people get with these injuries. And obviously a lot of them are freak accidents. They're things, they're strains, they're sprains. I treat a lot of just general stuff. It's not all these blowout injuries that are terrible, but the amount of pain that these athletes are expected to deal with is sickening. And it's very, very toxic to have an environment that either doesn't recognize that you don't have enough information and you need to study more or find people to help you. And it's equally as problematic to set up a culture where pain is just assumed and that, this is a natural part of gymnastics. You should be in pain, right? There's a very different feeling between muscular soreness from just doing a hard strength and conditioning circuit and mentally being pushed outside your comfort zone because you've done all the skills and you're prepared for it and your coach cares about your best interest and wants you to do well in the sport. That's a completely different conversation than stay on the beam and do 10 more until you get it right. And I don't care what you say. That's completely different than like gymnastics is supposed to hurt, get over it. Like that is so not okay. And we have to hold ourselves and other people more accountable for calling out those behaviors, regardless of whether you are brand new to coaching or you've been to the Olympics. I don't care where it is. And when you take a big step back, it's just gymnastics. Gymnastics will end and they have the same body. You can't go to Home Depot and buy a new spine. You can't go to Home Depot and get new elbows. And that's the problem that we're facing, is that a lot of this lack of education that I think has not happened. And I'm part of the problem earlier in my career is just assuming I knew too much. If you haven't studied anatomy in depth, you shouldn't be making flexibility programs. If you haven't studied in-depth strength and conditioning or gotten a degree, you shouldn't be the one who's in charge of creating a metabolic circuit because you could very easily hurt the athlete. If you haven't spent time studying your Chanko technique or spotting that skill, you shouldn't be spotting or doing that. You need to check your ego and say, I don't know how to do this. Can somebody else teach me? Or is there somewhere that I can go to find this? Because all it takes is one short landing to break someone's ankle, and then it becomes a very, very different situation of emotional and mental stress. So again, I don't mean to be somber, but I've never seen it this bad in the 6 years that I've worked, and I've never seen it this bad in the 25 years that I've been in the sport.
Wow. Well, and let's talk about one of the NCAA studies, the one about pain medication use.
Not only for myself, but I think for my teammates, it was almost a routine to take at least 2 to 3 Aleve every day before practice.
Yeah, same.
And we never thought anything about it. And I think I even remember one of my teammates, her stomach lining was all messed up because she had taken so much Aleve throughout her gymnastics career. It's sad because we don't think about it that way in the moment.
Well, and it goes back to what Dave was saying, knowledge. You didn't know, and we didn't know you were doing it. At least I didn't know. That's got to be part of whatever the solution is education.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that this is a very complex topic, and I think definitely the most important conversation is about education. I think that there are very good resources now. 20 years ago, we could say like maybe we didn't have the data or the studies or we didn't really understand it yet. But thankfully, through the blessing of research and science and people who are very hardworking, we know a lot about what a female gymnast or a male gymnast needs for fuel. We know a lot about what they need for hydration, and we know how much they should sleep. We know about how much they can take in a day in terms of workload when a certain age and their growth plates are open versus closed. We have a lot of information from very credible sources that suggest that, hey, carbs aren't actually bad for you. You need them. Healthy fats are good for your brain. You need water. You need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Right? You need these things to perform well. And I think that's part of the problem, is that the education on proper recovery is not being properly given to the athletes and the parents and the coaches that need it the most. And then the other part of this is I think that people are not, unfortunately, comfortable enough or willing enough or have enough trust, whatever you want to call it, to have a difficult conversation about the reality of why someone isn't sleeping 8 hours a night or why someone's nervous about body image issues or food issues and things like that. Right? Like, I'm very lucky that I have a female staff coaching partner who has a master's in psychology. And then the other owner of our gym also has a master's in psychology. And so anytime we get the hint about a body image issue or someone saying just like an offhanded comment in practice, you know what I mean? Like, we're quick to be like skew it towards performance, but we always refer them back to the female coaches to talk about these things head on, because the issue with not eating enough might come down to a deeper lying insecurity or fear that was generated from social media. right? Or friends, or comparing people. And as a male athlete, this happens a lot in the guys' side as well. So I don't want to say it's females, because when you have 7 or 8 teammates that are shredded 8-packs and maybe you're not, that drives why you're maybe going to make different food choices, or that drives why you can't fall asleep at night, or that drives why you're making certain decisions about what you're doing with yourself. And that's the problem of why these injuries aren't healing. That's a big piece of it, right? So I think that that's something we have to be thinking about, is do we have the right educational sources? And also, do we have the right trust and comfort level to talk about these things with athletes in a professional way? And if we're not the person as a coach, it is time to refer or get somebody else on your team. And everyone's quick to be like, well, the parents do this, or the coaches do that, or the medical providers do that. Guys, it's all of our faults. Everybody here has a role to play in this. So yes, you can blame it on the parent, but maybe as a coach, you didn't present that well enough. Maybe you didn't spend enough time there. And as a parent, you could blame that on the coach and say, well, the coach pushes him too hard. Well, you're the one who spends 18 hours a day with the athlete, right? So you have to realize that everybody has a role to play. But I think educating the athletes on evidence-based, science-supported best practices for nutrition, injuries, starting, what's soreness versus pain, how do you recover, how do you fall asleep better, how do you balance your homework? What are some healthy mental coping strategies to get through the stresses of daily life and build resilience in a young athlete? Those are the things I think that are sorely missed. We know plenty about gymnastics technique. What we don't have really good implementation of is the science of recovery, the science of strength conditioning and flexibility and periodization. And those are the things that I unfortunately think in the last 10 years, ego has allowed people to think they know about, and they fake it in the gym, including myself 5 years ago. And it leads to a problem where the athletes don't develop physically for the skills they're trying to do. And when you don't think in a long-term model on top of that and think, okay, this is the goal for 5 to 10 years, and not, ooh, this girl's talented, let's do a Yurchenko full when she's 14 and do hard mats for the rest of her career. Resist the urge to show off a young, talented athlete and push them so hard when their brain and their bones aren't ready for it.
It's such a major shift in the way we think about the sport, our athletes, and our daughters. Do you think we'll get there?
I think we have no option. I don't think it's a question of whether we should. I think it's only a matter of how quick are people willing to wake up to the problem. And the analogy that I used this past weekend at the Harvard course was, this is sombering, but I feel as of right now, we're standing in front of a burning building and we're asking if anybody has extra smoke alarm batteries. We're seriously just looking for technical solutions to cultural problems. Everyone's like, I need more conditioning circuits. I need the best active flexibility drills. I need the best exercise to fix my Sever's disease. I need the best core work to make sure nobody's back gets hurt. I need the best running drills. It's like, no, we don't. We need cultural fixes. We need a better way to manage workloads. And we need a systematic, low barrier to entry coaching education system that is going to give the coaches the tools they need to help the athletes. We need better ways to educate the parents about, this is about what the daughter or son wants to do. Here's how we help them in the process. This is not about me as a coach living vicariously through my athletes at a meet and making them do skills they're maybe not ready for because I'm insecure about my coaching and I'm fearful of the judgment of other coaches. I'm so worried about what all the other coaches think about me instead of what I think about myself that I'm letting kids do skills they're not ready for. And when they land a big dismount, I can go nuts and celebrate. That's great if they're ready for it. Other parents are so scared about what other parents are saying about their daughters, or who got what trophy, or who got what score, or what college is looking, or how many likes they got on social media, that they're letting kids do things that they're not ready for. And we have to be the adults in the room to say that, I understand that you want to do this, but you're not ready yet. But I think the most important thing we have to do if we expect things to change fast is better role modeling and better accountability of our own actions. It is very hard for an athlete to follow what you say when you don't do what you say, right? It's easy to yell at an athlete and tell them to do more harder strength and conditioning, but then you're sitting on the block and eating. What does that say, right? You always say, well, hold your temper and don't flip out of the meet when you get a bad result. You need to stay calm. But as soon as the score goes wrong or as soon as the rotation schedule gets backed up, you're flipping out and you're complaining and you're yelling. I think that that's been the harshest reality for me, is that I was saying one thing and I was doing another. And all the athletes were like, okay, yeah, sounds good, right? So now I think that people just need to realize that we all have room to grow and that we need to be accountable for our role modeling actions. We need to be accountable for our education. And we need to think a little bit more through the priority filter of health first, humans second, gymnastics third, and not the other way around.
And do you think this is a club and a college problem? I know it's a all problem, but
I think it's definitely a combination of both. There are factors at the JO club level that are creating such a rampant rise in issues. I think the 10 to 14 or 15 age gap for male and females is the biggest problem right now. The college programs, I'm lucky to have talked with and consulted with a lot of very big name colleges, and all of them are very good people. People are easy to pin the NCAA coaches as these monsters who are recruiting these kids when they're 7 and trying to get them scholarships by 8th grade. And the reality is that they don't want to do that, but they're under a very challenging position where they're expected to have success in their later years of their teams, which requires making sure that there's talented kids who want to come to their school and are a good fit. And so they're trying to find ways to make sure that things are progressing for the next few years. But at the same time, the challenge there is that if they're expected to have kids who are super talented, it doesn't mean they have to have all of their skills and be ready by 14. And I don't know where this came from, and I don't know why it's so existent in our culture, but everyone is just assuming that just because the kids have skills or are talented, we should push them in the levels as fast as possible and get them to level 10 if they want to get a scholarship. I have people that I work with that are 13 years old trying to do level 10 skills and compete them at 13 and 14, and I promise you very few of them make it to college. If you're going to the Olympics, that's a very different story. But the majority of kids are just wanting to do well and go to college maybe or do something like that. And so there's no need for us to be, okay, if you're trying to get to college by 18, if you start doing your Yurchenko full when you're 14, that's a lot of impacts and poundings you're going to take over 4 years. And there's definitely better processes by the later recruiting stuff by junior year and things of that nature. But I think, again, the problem is that coaches are falsely tying their self-worth as a coach to the level of skill the athlete is competing. And so they're trying to show off how many big skills the athletes have. Again, victim number one when I was younger. But that's the problem, is that if you really care about the athlete, you'll plan for the 8-year goal and not the 4 years or the 3-year goal. And so I think that in order for us to have a universal playing field where kids are just rewarded for their talent and their work ethic put together, we have to make sure the entire NCAA is enforcing rules about this, right? Because right now, gymnastics is a durability contest and not a contest of work ethic, and that's very sad to see. The NCAA has a role to play, but they're not these evil monsters. And on the flip side, with all the negative press that has happened in gymnastics right now, it's like gymnastics versus the world, and they think that everybody working as a coach in gymnastics is this malicious dictator who's pushing the kids through hard training hours and is screaming at the kids. Yes, there are people who are doing that and are being held accountable as we speak, but 85% of the coaches out there are just good people who want to help kids. And there's no systematic education process here in the U.S. that they have in other countries to be like level 1 coach, level 2 coach, level 3 coach, basic anatomy, basic, physiology, basic technique, and this and that. It's very much more people, you get more information, you look on social media, you try to find these things, and it's unfortunately not an open access community of learning. It's a cloak and dagger, hide the secret so I can win kind of point of view, and I'm all for healthy competition, but what we're doing now is not healthy competition. It's toxic environment building.
Agreed. Since we talked last year, has it gotten better?
I actually do think it's gotten better. It's very easy to point out all the things that are still not going well. The people with a negative, louder voice have a larger megaphone, unfortunately. That's how social media works. And the people that are quietly doing the humble work just don't get the credit they deserve. People need to be more disciplined about social media because that's construing a negative connotation that it's all doom and gloom all the time and nothing's going well. But in the last 12 months, we do see more coaches who are maybe realizing that they have more to learn and they're seeking out more information. They're trying to find better ways. They're going to courses. They're trying to find things that are helpful. I also do think that we're seeing more and more people who are making the right decisions based on health first, gymnastics last kind of point of view. But I do think that the magnitude of changes that need to happen if we want to see the sport continue to move out of a very dark time are bigger than people realize, and they're going to be more uncomfortable than people want.
If I am one of the parents that want to make the difference, if I'm a coach that want to make the difference, or an athlete, where do I go to get more information? How do I make my voice count towards this?
I think the best thing that I did when I was kind of going through this, and especially all of the coaches at our gym, and we still have many, many problems, but I think we've made serious progress. The first thing you want to do is look to external things. You want to go to a clinic, you want to find a mentor, you want to do that, and that's great, don't get me wrong, but you should spend all of the time on yourself first. You should spend all of the time internally thinking about why am I coaching in gymnastics? What do I want to get out of this? And I think the harder conversation you need to have with yourself and to get to the root of these problems is, what am I really scared of? And what are my biggest insecurities, right? And I'll use myself as an example. When I was a younger coach, like I said, I was scared of what other coaches thought about me. I was scared of the judgment of other coaches. I was fearful that I was going to be looked at as someone who was young and didn't know what they were doing, and I was going to get ridiculed for that. And so because of those fears and insecurities, it manifested as a large ego where I would boss my athletes around. I would push them really hard because I was trying to be a tough guy. I wouldn't seek outside sources of information because I thought I was the man and all that kind of stuff. And all it really led to was an incredible amount of resentment of the athletes that I was coaching and the people that I worked with, talking behind my back, rightfully so, about how big of an ego I had because, I have a doctorate and he's so this and that and he thinks he knows everything. And all it led to was just resentment and very, very awkward practices where one coach was yelling at me because I was being kind of egotistical and I was trying to hold my stern ground and this and that. And so if you can figure out the things that you're scared of and the things that make you insecure and really reevaluate your values, I think that people can start to rely more on, hey, I'm doing the best that I can based on my values. And it's really easier to do that once you've thought about it a little bit more. But I think that people need to try to find more time on spending with themselves, but then be able to block the noise out of what else is going on around them and kind of have tunnel vision blinders and just quietly keep doing the humble work on your values and learning more technique. Last Wednesday, we sat down with all of our athletes and said, guys, open season, tell us everything you think we're doing wrong to fix in the last year. And they fired away for a half hour. If you have a big ego and you're insecure, that's a tough half hour to take. If you know that you're doing the best you can and this is just the way you communicate, those things don't go below surface deep.
I just want to give your website out again because, again, I think that's like an amazing resource for people to get started and just, to understand the passion and the commitment that Dave talks about. You've been living it.
Yeah.
We want you to make the difference. And here at the Routine Podcast, if there's anything that we can do to help make that happen, you let us know. You've got an athlete in Chelsea. You've got a parent in me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've been doing this for 6 years, and this year has, without a doubt, absolutely been the most challenging year to stay involved in working so much and trying to help. There's been 2 times in the last year where I was like, I'm done, man. That's it. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to finish coaching these athletes and I'm wrapping it up because I can't emotionally take what happens to these kids in the clinic and what happens there. But the reason I did not do that is because I have clients who are grateful and are thankful for rehabbing and getting back and getting strength and sports performance stuff. But also I get messages every single day from coaches around the world and gyms around the world that are like, thank you so much for doing it. You have no idea how much of an impact it makes. I just want to learn more. I'm just a coach who wants to help my kids. I have 7 kids in Northern Ireland that were not even competitive and they love doing gymnastics. And I think that that's really what comes down to the end of it. If you're in this for the money and for the ego, you got a long road ahead of you, man. I'm telling you that right now. You got a long, uncomfortable road because if it doesn't come back now, it's going to come back in 10 years when your athletes don't come back to the gym on their summer breaks and you're wondering why nobody wants to hang out with you anymore. Most people just need help. The athletes just need help. The parents need help. The college coaches just want some help from the jail crowd to make sure the kids are healthy on the way up. I think all of us need to stop pointing fingers. There's a role to play for holding the people accountable who need to be. Don't get me wrong. I don't want this to be a stage quote that's not what should happen. People need to make changes based on who needs to be held accountable. But there are many times when you should put down the megaphone on social media and pick up the shovel. And I think that's what everybody has moving forward. Just do good by the kids that you work with, and it will work out down the road.
All right, Dave, you've got to stay in it. We need your voice.
Cheers.
All right, so guys, it's shiftmovementscience.com. It's Dr. Dave Tilley.
If you have questions or you want to know stuff, I would email me. Email dave@shiftmovementscience.com. It might take a while, but I answer every single email myself and every message. So there's no robots, there's no text, there's no assistants. It's all me. So it takes a while, but if you have a question, I'm happy to try to help.
And you recently started a podcast.
I did. Yeah, the podcast is sweet. The podcast evolved accidentally because I was interviewing friends of mine like Jamie the nutritionist or Nick Ruddick. And I was like, these would be cool and putting on longer form content. It was like a YouTube thing, but now it's an audio form. And I try to do a balance of both the really, really geeky medical stuff for those that are interested. But we've also had some really cool guest podcasts with like Becky Downey, Danusia Francis, and they share their experiences about the things that we're talking about and what they would have done differently as a younger athlete and why they were successful because their coaches supported them with a loving relationship relationship, and their parents supported them, not the brutal mentality that people think it is at the Olympic level. So got some good ones coming up, and then we're going to get you guys on. So that will be fun.
And the name of the podcast again is?
It's just The Shift Show. Yeah, I got lucky with that name. Rolls off the tongue pretty well, yeah.
Well, we can't wait to be on the show, Dave.
Yes.
Can't wait either. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, and if we don't talk before then, we'll talk again next summer.
Yes, absolutely. We'll make it a yearly thing.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
So that's Dave. He's like our modern day Paul Revere for gymnastics, right? Just saying, people, listen.
Wake up.
Wake up. And again, I think it's not just coaches. It's not just parents. It's not just gymnasts.
It's all of us.
It's the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if any of us can do our part in helping to understand where we are, and more importantly, how do we change it?
Mm-hmm. I love when he said, it's like a burning building and someone says, we need to change the batteries in the smoke alarm. It's like, no, we have a bigger problem.
Exactly. So, Dave, thank you for being on the show. And, just thanks for your honesty and your courage, because this is courageous. I think what you've done for the book and giving it away just to make a difference. I think if we can do our part and continue to share your message, we're going to do that. But again, anytime you want to be on the show, give us a call, shoot us an email.
We're here.
And more importantly, we're going to be continuing to reach out to you.
And we'll link the NCAA articles on our website for you all to read if you would like. But going back to the statistic about 77% of gymnasts sustained at least one major sports-related injury before entering college, what's interesting is that the next highest sport is soccer with 47%. Speaking from the gymnast perspective, we don't know how harmful we are being to our bodies. We're just trying to make it to the next day of practice.
Yep. Just trying to get through.
Which isn't okay. But now as a 26-year-old, I'm able to look back on my career and realize that that's not okay.
It wasn't okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as a parent, it wasn't okay.
Yeah. So we're just trying to do the best that we can.
Now, that's exactly right.
And spread as much education as we can.
Agreed. Education makes the difference, because then we're making our decisions based on knowledge. And there is where Dave comes in. So Dave, again, thank you.
So again, if you all would like to reach out to Dave Tilley, his website is shiftmovementscience.com. You can also follow him on Twitter at shift_MVMTSCI. So another summer series episode in the books. And as always, thank you to College Gym News for supporting us. College Gym News is your one-stop shop for all things college gymnastics. For event coverage, leotard rankings, in-depth features, fantasy gymnastics resources, and more, visit collegegymnews.com.
And if you're interested in supporting CGN's expanding coverage, visit College Gym News/donate. College Gym News, all the college gymnastics news you want, all in one place. So we're going to be back in 2 weeks. A teaser for our show.
I think we kind of spilled the beans earlier in the show, but I'll give the same hint. We're interviewing a former NCAA gymnast who has decided to go for the 2020 Olympics.
Yep, so it's going to be a fun episode.
If you all enjoyed today's episode, be sure to rate us on the Apple Podcast app. It really helps us out. Leave us a review and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you want to continue the conversation with us, you can tweet us. Our Twitter is @routinepodcast. You can email us at info@theroutinepodcast.com, or you can leave us a voicemail on our website, theroutinepodcast.com. Today was very controversial.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from a parent. Love to hear from a coach.
Or if you all have thoughts on the wage gap,
That's true too.
Yeah, there's a lot of opinions about that.
So if you want to leave a voicemail about any of these topics, you go to our website, theroutinepodcast.com. You look at the top navigation and you'll see something that says be a part of the conversation. You click that, scroll to the bottom, you'll see a microphone. You click the microphone and you leave us your voicemail message.
And I can edit you if you stumble your words. There's no pressure.
She does a really good job of editing me. She just can't shut me up.
It's okay. It's all right. But we look forward to seeing your comments. And as always, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Oh, and
I thought you were going to say goodbye. No?
to all of our American listeners, happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July.
I hope you have lots of hot dogs.
Oh, not lots of hot dogs.
Maybe
Lots of apple pie.
That's very American.
As are hot dogs. But one, if you're going to go for it, go for the apple pie.
How about this? I hope you see a lot of pretty fireworks.
There we go.
And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.